Well, hello everyone. I'm just getting used to this YouTube thing again. So I know this. I'm gonna have to edit this a little bit, I think. There we go. Huh. Yeah. Um, Wanted to get on and give everybody a just a reflection on what I've been reading through the Bible in a year this year. Um, so far. Today, if you are following the path that I am following, if you're following the same program, you read Genesis 12, 13, 14, and 15, along with Psalm 4. And I really, this I've been influenced recently, and I find new meaning, or at least some new insight into these chapters in Genesis. If you read Psalm 4, it's all about trusting God and how we are supposed to trust God. And Abraham is wonderful for trusting God. At least he is at the end of his life. But I find it really fascinating and kind of wonderful in some ways, and head-scratching in some others, that in chapter 12 of Genesis, Abraham is told to go to this new land. God says, hey, I will provide you. You go to this new land, I'll provide for you. And there your family will bless the peoples. And that's wonderful. We think of the Jews, Abraham's family blessing the world. But Abram at this time, he goes to that new land with his wife, and it lasts all of 9 verses. By verse 10, he's gone down to Egypt. He has he's scared, and he's abandoned God in some ways. He decides he's going to live on his own account. He's going to work for himself a little bit and protect himself and his own hide. He's not going to listen to God for protection. And so here we are in Genesis 12, 9 verses into Abraham's calling, and he's already forgotten what God has told him, or at least he's not acting on it. And that becomes a pattern for Abraham, even after God works in him in chapter 12 and gets him to go back to Canaan and take his wife and all these things. We see again in chapter 15 God bringing out a covenant with Abraham. This is a wonderful, wonderful covenant that his family shall bless the earth, and that God will make him great. And then in tomorrow's readings is chapter 16. No sooner has God made the covenant with Abram and Sarah to bless their children and to work through their children than they give up on God's blessing and go about it their own way and assault Hagar. So there is, right there in the first 4 chapters of Abram's story, God calls him to the land, he leaves the land. God calls his children, he decides to have children outside of God. It shows us just how we often are as people. We often are people who we can often be people who, even when God calls us to do the right things, when God wants us to be great, we fail because we become selfish, we become greedy, we want to do it our way. We don't want God interfering in our thing, in our ways, in our goodness. We want God to work in our time frame. We want God to work in our ideas, and we don't give over to God what we should. I think the twofold lesson is that we should not be like Abraham early on, and that most of us are like Abraham, and we have to keep working at those areas in our lives so that God can work through us. It's also a great blessing that God does not stop working with Abram just because Abram acts like an idiot early on. God continues to work with Abraham, continues to build him, continues to see him grow to the point where he does become a person who is faithful to God. I hope that that is your story, that you will continue to be faithful with God this year. Remember that even though there are some hiccups along the way, God still helps us and works through us. And God bless. I will see you hopefully next week.